Hi, I'm Lucy from Sew Essential and I'm here today to take a closer look at the Husqvarna Brilliance 75Q, which is my actual machine and just one of a wide range of hundreds of sewing machines and overlockers available to buy on our site sewessential.co.uk. At Sew Essential, we pride ourselves on using our expert knowledge to help you find the perfect machine for you. And that's why I've made this video, but we're also always here to support you by phone or email too. The Brilliance 75Q is a truly exceptional machine and I feel very lucky to own one. It's at the top end of the Husqvarna range and we stock all of those machines on our site. There are so many reasons why I love this machine and we'll look at them in more detail in the video, but here are the headline features. It has 250mm to the right of the needle. To put that into perspective, most standard machines have about 170. It also has exceptional LED lighting to really illuminate that extra large work area. It has a colour touch screen and displays the actual size of the stitches that I'm going to sew. It has an exclusive sensor system which continuously and automatically adjusts and senses the thickness of the fabric for perfect feeding. It also has an exclusive sewing advisor, so I can tell it the weight and the type of fabric that I'm sewing with, and it will set itself up to get optimal results and even tell me which type of needle I need to use. It tells me when my bobbin thread is running low, so I never run out. And I can even wind a bobbin through the needle, so I don't have to stop and unthread the machine. It's got 29 needle positions which allow me to achieve such precision and accuracy in my sewing. It has a Sensormatic buttonhole foot which automatically sews the right size buttonhole. And it also has 463 beautiful stitches to choose from, with options for tapering, sewing sideways up to 54mm. It includes 4 exclusive to Husqvarna advanced stitch techniques, 4 fonts and the ability to mirror my stitches side to side or end to end. I have the option to import files using a USB. It comes with 12 different presser feet and a straight stitch needle plate, and then it has all the usual features you would expect of a machine at this point in the range. Scissor snips, needle up down, speed control, a start stop button. I'll pop a link in the corner of the screen so you can view it on our website and purchase it there. Later in the video we'll look at what comes in the box, but now let's take a closer look at what my beautiful machine could do for you. We'll start by threading the machine, and even when it comes to the threading there are some really special features on the Husqvarna Brilliance 75Q. Not only can you wind the bobbin in the conventional way, which I'm going to show you now, you also have the option to wind it through the needle. So this means you can leave the machine threaded through the needle and then wind a bobbin without unthreading the needle, saving you time and effort. So I'll show you the conventional method first. We've got the thread on the spool pin secured with a spool cap, and I'm just going to bring it around this metal guide here, down the side, and then we want to go around the thread guide here. Just make sure you feel that click into place, and you should feel some tension on that thread when you pull it. And then I'm going to thread through the hole on the top of the bobbin, and the Husqvarna bobbins have got an H on the top so that you know which way round they go. Just pull that thread through, and then we're going to bring it across the bobbin winder, slot it on there, and just make sure that the thread passes through this thread guide here. Then we'll push it to the right hand side, and on the screen you've even got the option to control the speed of your bobbin winding, so you can move it right up so that it goes faster, or you can move it down. I usually like to have it somewhere in the middle so that it isn't too fast. I've got the option to control it with the buttons on the screen as well, or I can use the foot control, so I'm just going to go ahead and use the foot control. Just snip that excess thread off and keep going. And then another amazing feature of the Brilliance 75Q is also the fact that when you're sewing, if your bobbin thread is running low, there's a sensor and the machine will flash up a message on the colour screen telling you that your bobbin thread is low. It even makes a little beeping sound as well. And this is just brilliant because if you're just about to embark on a really long seam, you know, you want to stop and change that bobbin straight away. Or you might think, well, actually, I'm only doing a short seam here, I'll carry on, and you can just put your foot down and keep going. And then, but you know you need to change that thread once you finish that short seam so that you don't get caught out on the next one. It's so useful. There's nothing more annoying than happily, merrily sewing away and reaching the end of a seam to find out that your bobbin's actually run out, and that is never going to happen with the Brilliance 75Q. I also want to mention here that you can see that the second spool pin is actually built in and ready attached to the machine, so you don't have to attach that separately like you do on a lot of other sewing machines. To insert the bobbin, we just slide the bobbin case cover off, and then we've got the H on the top of the bobbin to tell us which way up to insert it. Drop it in with the H on the top, bring the thread through the groove at the front there, and then bring it up to the left. And if you just put a finger on the bobbin as you pull it to the left, you'll feel it click through the tension, and then bring it around the guide following the arrows, and then under that guide at the front there. And then I like to replace the bobbin case cover first, and then if you pull the thread, there's a small blade that will just snip that excess off for you. To thread the needle, make sure that your foot is in the up position because that will open the tension discs inside the machine. Bring the thread from the bottom of the reel again and around the same metal thread guide here, but then instead of going around this thread guide, we want to follow the groove up to the top of the machine, down the left hand side of the metal piece here, to the bottom, back round again, and then we're going down the right hand side of the take up lever and then bringing it towards the left as you bring it back towards yourself, and then the thread is secured in the take up lever and we take it down the front of the machine. We then take the thread behind the thread guide at the top of the needle bar there, and then we're going to use the needle threader, so I'm just going to bring it down, take the thread around the guide on the left hand side across the eye of the needle, and then gently let go and it will pull the thread through the eye of the needle for you, and you can just pull that loop through, pass it under the foot and to the back of the machine. And now we've got the needle threaded, I just thought I'd quickly show you how you can wind the bobbin through the needle. So for this, you should only use a metal presser foot because obviously the thread is going to wear against the inside of the foot as the bobbin winds. If you use a plastic one, it could wear it down. But you just take your thread under the foot still, but bring it across to the side here, come across these bars here, through the guide at the top, and then you just wind the bobbin in exactly the same way as we did before, but it just means that you can leave your needle threaded. You don't have to stop to wind a bobbin, you don't have to unthread your needle, and it just saves you time. It's really efficient and it just prevents that feeling of, you know, irritations of things stopping your sewing during your project. It just means it's all a lot more seamless and you feel like you can carry on and enjoy the sewing more without those interruptions. Once you've threaded the machine, it's time to start choosing from all the wonderful options, and there are a lot of options on this machine. There are 463 stitches, 11 different styles of buttonhole, 4 different fonts, not to mention all the other settings and ways you can customise things. But the good news is this lovely big colour touchscreen makes it really easy to navigate your way around and choose from those options. And one of my favourite features is this question mark here. So if ever you can't remember what an icon means or what a stitch is for, you just press that question mark, and if I can't remember what this icon's for, if I press that, it tells me that that will give me my free motion options. I've also got the option to go into a stitch. If I can't remember what that stitch is for, I can go to the question mark, touch it, and it will give me an overview of what that stitch is for, what it's used for. It's just wonderful having that at the tip of your fingers. It means you don't have to go rifling through the manual every time you want to know something. All the information is there and instantly accessible on the machine. It's just brilliant. So if we look at the overall screen, we've got 3 tabs here. The first one, the blue one, is where we edit the stitch. So it will tell us all the information we need to know about the stitch we've selected and how it's been set up. And we've also got the options to edit that there. On the second tab, we've got the stitch menu where we can scroll through all of those stitches, but there are some quick, easy ways to navigate your way around those as well, which I'll show you. And then the orange button gives us the option to jump to the stitch menus, the alphabet menus, also to program stitches, access our save stitches, and then go into the settings where you can really start to customize this machine, the way it will work, and set it to your preferences to make your sewing experience effortless. So let's just take a look at the edit menu in a little bit more detail now. It gives us all the information we need to know about the stitch we've chosen and how the machine has set itself up for that stitch. It tells us which foot we need to use and gives us a really clear image of what that foot looks like, which is helpful because you do receive a large number of feet and accessories with this machine when you purchase it from us. And having that image and knowing what you're looking for just makes it quicker and easier to put your hands on it. It also displays the stitch in the actual size it will appear on your fabric. So that is the size it will be in reality. If I then start to adjust the width, you'll notice that the stitch is changing on the screen, and that's because that is what it will look like when it stitches out. And that is just so helpful when you're making decisions about how wide you want a stitch to be, particularly. You'll also notice that the stitch width number's gone from black to red, which tells me that this is an overridden number, that's something that I've changed. If I want to make sure I go back to the default settings, the number will go back to black when I've chosen the default settings. So that's really useful as well for when you want to just go back to where you started. Here it tells us which fabric type and weight we've selected, and this is one of the real standout features of this machine. You select the type of fabric and the weight of that fabric, and the machine will automatically set itself up for that fabric and the stitch you've chosen. It's got an exclusive sewing advisor which will automatically set the thread tension. It will tell you the needle type and size that you need to use. It will set the stitch width and stitch length, and even set the presser foot pressure as well. It will do all of those things automatically for you, depending on what type of fabric you've chosen. In addition to that, there's an exclusive sensor system which senses the thickness of the fabric, and the machine adjusts itself so that that fabric feeds through perfectly. It's just so clever, so easy and so effortless. And the way you choose the different fabrics is just down here on this menu. You can go from woven light, medium, heavy, and then you've got options for stretch light, medium and heavy. And you'll notice that things are changing on the screen, the stitch is changing on the screen, and also the type and size of needle is changing because the machine is setting itself up for that fabric type and for that fabric weight. And then you've even got the option for leather at the end as well. It's just so useful, and I find that the vast majority of the time, in fact I don't think I've ever overridden those settings myself. It just seems to set the machine up perfectly based on the fabric that you've selected. But if you are somebody who really likes to fine-tune things and have that little bit of extra control, you can override those settings. So it's currently set up for leather. It's telling me I need a size 90 stretch needle for that particular stitch. But if I think, oh, I don't want it to be 5mm wide, although that's what the machine has suggested, I can override that. I can also use this gauge here to override the thread tension, so I can reduce that or increase that there. And again, the number turns to red, so I know that that's something I've altered. And if I want to get back to the default settings, I know that the numbers will turn black again. But I really can't emphasize enough how wonderful this sewing advisor is and what a difference it makes to your sewing. Instead of messing around with thread tensions and trying to get a good stitch, the machine does it all for you. You just choose the fabric weight and the fabric type, and then you can get on and enjoy your sewing. So I want to go ahead and start doing some basic sewing now and show you some of the function buttons. Once you've selected your stitches, then how you can control the sewing. And the first thing I want to show you is one of my favourite features of this machine, and that's the automatic foot lift and lowering. To start sewing, there isn't a lever that I have to pull down to lower the foot. I've got two different ways of doing it. I can press the foot down button, or I can just simply tap the foot control and start sewing. And I just love that feature. I don't have to think about anything. I just put my foot down and go. The one thing I do notice though is then when I use a sewing machine that doesn't have that feature, I put my foot down and it beeps at me and I'm thinking, why isn't it just going? And it is so lovely to have a machine that just goes. You know, you don't have to do a manual process to start sewing. I've also got the option to finish with the needle in the up or the down position. When I select for it to finish in the down position, I just press this button here and a needle is displayed on the touch screen for me so that I know that I've set it up to finish with the needle in the down position. And the foot will also hover just above the fabric in the pivot position. So if I sew some more stitches now, the foot raises, the needle goes down in the fabric, and I love that feature as well because generally if I'm stopping sewing in the middle of a seam or part way through a seam, it's because I want to have a look at what's going on, I want to check something, or perhaps I want to pivot round a corner, and the fact that the machine just automatically does all of that for me is wonderful. I've also got additional foot lift, so if I press the foot up button again, you can see I've got a really good gap between the fabric and the bottom of the presser foot. So if I'm working with thick and bulky fabrics or on a quilt or a coat or something like that, it's really easy for me to get the fabric under the foot, but it's also easy for me to get it out as well. And then I can press that button another time and the foot will raise even higher and the feed dogs will drop down. So sometimes you might find yourself in a situation where you've got some fabric wedged under the foot. I've had that happen to me before. So you've done something wrong, something's gone awry somewhere, and you know you really need to sort of manoeuvre that fabric out, and having that additional foot lift is absolutely brilliant in those circumstances. We've also got the scissor snips button. If I press that, the threads are cut for me. But what you'll notice is that I was able to do that with the foot, even in the highest position. Normally, on a lot of sewing machines, you're only able to press that button once the foot is lowered. But on the Husqvarna Brilliance 75Q, I can press that button at any point, whether the foot's up or down, and it will snip my threads for me. I can also press that button when I'm midway through a stitch pattern, and the machine will know to complete that pattern and then secure it and snip the threads for me. So I'm just going to select a decorative stitch now to show you that in action. So if I go ahead now, I'm just going to put my foot down to start sewing. You'll notice that I press the scissor snips button part way through that being stitched out, and it knew to complete the pattern, secure the stitches and snip the threads for me. So that's another great way to use that scissor snips function. We've also got the fixed stitch button, which is automatically set to come on whenever you select a new stitch. You can override that. You don't have to have the machine set up like that. I quite like it because I always want to secure my seams at the start of sewing generally, and I like the fact that it does the neat stitches on the spot rather than the reverse stitch. But if you don't want that to automatically happen every time you start sewing, you have got the option to override it. Or if you think, oh, on this occasion I don't want it to do that, you can just press the button, the light goes off, and you know that that won't now start with a fixed stitch. Here we've got the speed control button. So if I press that, a chart's displayed on the touch screen, and I can either press the speed button multiple times to decrease or increase the speed, or I can actually touch the graph on the touch screen to reduce or increase that speed as well. But another great feature of this machine is that the speed will already be set by the machine for the stitch you've chosen. So if it's just a simple straight stitch, it will be on the fastest speed, but if you're doing something more intricate that is better stitched out at a slightly slower speed, the machine knows that and does that for you. And then of course you can override that as well if you want to. Beneath that we've got the stop button, and again this enables me to press that button midway through sewing a pattern and it will complete the last full pattern for me, but it won't snip the threads. So if I stitch out that same pattern again and press that part way through, it will secure the stitches for me and stop sewing, and then I can press the scissor snips button and you can see it's finished in the same place as the last stitch. It's always going to finish in that same place even if I press it up here somewhere. And having the option to do that without snipping the threads is great, because you might be trying to match something up perfectly. You might want to just stop and check if you need to do any more stitches without cutting those threads. So you've got that option there as well. Beneath that we've got the start stop button, and again I just absolutely love the fact on this machine, the Brilliance Husqvarna 75Q, which you can purchase on our website, I haven't got to lower the presser foot, I haven't got to unplug the presser foot. I can be in the position I'm in with the foot up, the needle up, and I can press that button and the machine will sew for me. Press it again and it stops sewing. On most machines with that function, you either have to unplug the foot control or you have to at least lower the foot to use that. On the Brilliance Husqvarna 75Q, you do not need to do that. You can just go ahead and sew. And then beneath that we've got your classic reverse stitch button, which if I press it and it's highlighted, it will continually sew backwards. So let's just rotate our fabric round. And then if I press it again, it will sew forwards. And I can choose to just do a short number of stitches to secure them and press it again to sew forwards. And when I finish stitching, just press the scissors button and the threads are cut for me. So I think the really sort of standout features for me on this are the fact that you're not going to have a machine that's constantly beeping at you, telling you, oh, you need to lower the presser foot before you can do that. You can't just start sewing, you know, with the foot control or the start stop button. You can't just snip the threads, you've got to lower the foot. There's none of that. You want to snip your threads, you can do that in any position. You want to start or stop sewing without your foot control, go ahead and do it. And you know, just sitting down to the machine and being able to tap the foot control and it starts to sew as well, it just feels so effortless, and it just means that you're focusing on the really fun bits of the sewing rather than worrying about pressing the right buttons or, you know, overriding the automatic settings of the machine. It just makes it very, very easy to get on, to sew and to enjoy the bits that you really want to do. And I'm going to show you the wonderful Sensormatic buttonhole foot in a moment. But before I do that, I thought it was just a nice opportunity to just take in the machine itself and just appreciate the immense amount of space to the right of the needle on this machine. You get 250 millimeters to the right of the needle on this machine. On a lot of long arm models, that can be as little as 210 millimeters. And just to put it into even more context, on a standard sewing machine, you usually get about 170 millimeters. So you are getting an incredible amount of space here, which just makes working on your projects, especially those bigger projects like coats or quilts or curtains, so much easier. Add to that this incredibly bright LED lighting, which really illuminates your work area, and you can see how just the physicality of this machine is so helpful and makes the sewing incredibly pleasurable too. And furthermore, I just wanted to point out that we can actually move the needle 29 positions on this machine. So you can move it to the left and to the right, and there are a total of 29 positions that you can select for the needle on this machine. And to put that into context, on a bog standard sewing machine, you're looking at about 15 different needle positions. So this just gives you so much control over those tasks that you want to have real precision and accuracy. Things like sewing piping or sewing zips, where you want to place those stitches exactly where you want them. The Husqvarna Brilliance 75Q gives you 29 different options for that stitch placement. In my opinion, one of the really exceptional features on the Husqvarna Brilliance 75Q is the automatic sensor buttonhole foot. It's absolutely brilliant. It sews a one-step buttonhole, but you do not need to put a button in the back of it. You plug it into the machine, tell the machine the size of your button, and it will automatically stitch out the right size buttonhole. I remember the first time I used it being so blown away by how clever it was. So to attach the foot, you just remove your standard presser foot. They're all snap-on feet, so you just literally snap them on and off. There's no button to press at the back of the ankle there. You just slide them on and off. And then you slide your buttonhole foot on, click that into place, and then this wire here is just inserted inside the machine. You'll feel a port under there, and you just push that up into the machine. Then you identify the size of your button. There's a handy chart on the front of the machine. You can just place your button on there and it will tell you which size it is in millimeters. And then on the screen, you choose the buttonhole that you want to sew. You then adjust the size of the button to match what you've just measured, and then you are ready to go ahead and stitch it out. And you also select your fabric type and fabric weight as well. And whilst we're mentioning that, I just want to mention that the Sensormatic foot, it works well with the majority of fabrics, but in certain circumstances that sensor isn't able to feel the fabric. So sometimes on very, very lightweight fabrics, or sometimes there can be issues with very heavyweight shape fabrics, but for the vast majority of fabrics, I've sewn literally hundreds of buttonholes using this foot on a wide range of fabrics. I do predominantly dressmaking. It's worked absolutely brilliantly for me, but just be prepared that there will be instances when you have to use the manual buttonhole foot, but I'll talk to you about that in more detail in a minute, and that's actually very easy to use as well. So before we stitch out, we just need to make sure that the white crown marked on the foot there is lined up with the line on the side of the foot here. And it's also worth mentioning that there are some markings at the front of the foot there as well, and they're incredibly useful if you're sewing multiple buttonholes and you want them all to be lined up an equal distance from the edge of the fabric, for example. So you've got those markings there as well. But we've got our white crown lined up, we're all ready to sew, so let's go ahead and stitch out that buttonhole. And you can see there we've got a beautifully neat buttonhole. If we just, you can cut that stray thread off, that's just where we started the buttonhole off. But we've got a beautifully neat balanced buttonhole. And what I particularly like about this foot as well is that it sews the two sides of the buttonhole in the same direction. Very often a sewing machine will sew one side in one direction and then it will come back down the other side, but with this buttonhole foot it sews both sides in the same direction, so it's lovely and balanced. And then you've got your usual options for adjusting the width of the stitches if you want to as well, so you can play around with that, but you can just see how easy it is to create these buttonholes the right size for your button. And as always recommended to do a test on a scrap of fabric first and just check it. But yeah, wonderful feature on the Brilliance 75Q. And then I'll also just quickly show you the manual buttonhole foot as well. So if for any reason you do need to use that rather than the Sensormatic buttonhole foot, you just remove it and replace it with the foot C, which is your manual buttonhole foot. Again, we've got those nice markings on the front of the foot there to help us line our buttonholes up accurately against the edge of our fabric. And then with this foot, you just need to mark the start and the end of your buttonhole on the fabric, where you want it to begin and where you want it to finish. And then you select your buttonhole. So I'm just going to select a buttonhole now. And then you simply start stitching out, and when you get to the end point of where you want the length of the buttonhole to finish, you stop, and I'll show you what to do then. So we'll start stitching out now. And then when I want to stop stitching in that direction, I simply press the reverse button once, and it will now sew the bar tack across the top and come back down the other side for me. And then once I'm level with where the buttonhole started, I press the reverse button again and it will sew the final bar tack. So you can see there how easy it is to use that manual buttonhole foot as well. And you can also see the difference between the two. I mean, both are lovely and neat, but you can see what I was saying about the Sensormatic buttonhole foot having that really balanced buttonhole, because the stitches on the two long sides are in the same direction, as opposed to the buttonhole with the manual foot, which goes up the left-hand side, across, down and back across again. But you've got both options there that you can use for whichever circumstances you need them for. Now if we take a look at the stitch menu, the red tab, We can scroll through all of the stitches on the machine using these arrows here, but with 463 stitches you could be there for quite some time. So I'm going to show you some nice shortcuts now for navigating your way around those menus. The first one is to just hold down on the zigzag stitch at the top and it will bring up 19 different menus. The stitches are organised into 19 different menus and you can scroll those here and then you can choose one to go into and then use the across arrows to scroll the different stitches within that menu. If you can't remember what one of those menus is for, let's just go back to them. Again, you can use your question mark, touch the menu and it will tell you, oh, that's the vintage stitches option there. So it's just really intuitive, really easy. There's a lot of information and options on the machine, but it's really quick and easy to find out which ones you want to use. Another option you've got to select those different menus is to use the orange button there, and if you touch that zigzag it will bring those up for you again and again. You can just scroll in the same way, select a menu and then scroll through that. And then there's a further way that you can select stitches quickly and easily, and that is by using the menu at the bottom here, just underneath where we select the fabric type and weight. There are some quick, easy access options for some of the most commonly used stitches. So we can go straight to a straight stitch, we can go to a buttonhole. You can access those immediately in that bottom menu there, and they are just those most commonly used utility stitches. If we go into one of the decorative menus, so if I just hold that down and we choose one of these lovely decorative stitches here, I'm going to choose number 10 there. You can see that's displayed on the screen as it will stitch out, but we've also got these options here for flipping the stitch. So we can flip it or mirror it end to end. And again, it will change on the screen so you can see exactly how that's going to stitch out. And then we've also got the option to mirror it side to side. So you can see there, I'm flipping the direction of the stitch, and that's just great for when you're doing projects where you're working on borders and things like that. You know, you can really customize these stitches to fit the project that you're working on perfectly. When you've set a stitch up as well and you want to save it, you've got the option with the heart there to do that and save that to your stitches. And then anything that you want to clear, if you've been programming a stitch and you want to clear it, you've got that delete button there. So let's go ahead now and take a look at some of the mirroring stitches in action. So I've chosen some slightly different stitches to really demonstrate the different directions well. Let's go ahead now and stitch out the first decorative stitch. And now I'm going to mirror that particular design end to end. And then I've got another design that I'm going to choose to demonstrate the mirroring side to side for you. So we'll stitch it out in the original direction first. And then I'm going to flip it in the opposite direction so you can see that as well. So there we have it. You can see I've flipped the first design end to end or lengthways, so one's going in the up direction, one's going in the down direction, and then I've done the other decorative stitch. I've mirrored it side to side So one is pointing to the right and one is pointing to the left. And you can just really play around with all these beautiful stitches on this machine, make them fit your project, flip them how you want to, and you've just got such opportunities to get really creative. Another way you can get super creative with the Brilliance Husqvarna 75Q, which you can purchase on our website, is by tapering stitches. So if we go back to the zigzag up here and hold down, we've got the menu of stitches up on the left hand side. If we scroll down all the way to the bottom to the Q menu, they are all the stitches that we are able to taper. So we can scroll through and see there are an awful lot of stitches there that we are able to taper. So let's use this first one as an example. You can see what that's going to look like on the screen here. And the reverse button there just means that you start stitching it out, and when you're ready to taper, you hit the reverse button, which is just to above and to the right of the needle bar. And if we want to edit that stitch, if we go into the edit menu, we've got our usual controls there, but we've also got an additional feature when we're in that tapering menu. And if I touch that, you'll see that you can taper the end of the stitch. You can choose different angles that you want it to taper to. And then I can also do that at the beginning of the stitch as well. So I could choose for it to start off with a 30-degree angle, and then I could choose for it to finish off with a 30-degree angle in the opposite direction or the same direction. And you can really start to play around with those stitches to be able to taper them as you stitch them out. And what's really nice, that's, you know, quite a simple satin stitch design, but there's some really sort of decorative stitches here as well. I mean, that star formation, stars are always one of my favourites to stitch out. You've got all of those options there in that menu again for how you want to taper the end and the beginning of that stitch. You can have a play around, and it just means that you can make it fit the border of a project perfectly. So let's go ahead and look at some of those tapering stitches in action. And it's just worth mentioning here, it is a good idea to use a stabiliser with your fabric to get the best results when you're doing these decorative stitches. We do stock a wide range of stabilisers on the site, and we can help you choose those as well. So don't hesitate to get in touch with us about that when you're purchasing the machine. So I just hit the reverse button when I wanted to start tapering, and then I can turn it round to 90 degrees. And you can see there I've been able to create that lovely mitered corner. And you could continue that all the way around to create a border or a frame for something. With a little bit of practice, you know, you can get it to match up exactly the way you would like it to. But it just shows you that, you know, it really gives you the opportunity to start to personalise your projects, give them a really unique twist, and you're not limited in the way you are with machines that won't allow you to taper in this way. Now we also have the option for some fantastic sideways sewing on the Brilliance 75Q in our Omnimotion Stitches menu. So this is menu K, so if we hold down the zigzag at the top and choose menu K, you'll see all of those stitches there, and you can sew up to 54 millimeters wide with these stitches. And there's actually quite a lot of choice here as well, so I'm just scrolling through the menu here. You can see there's actually a lot of designs where we can do this, and the machine feeds the fabric forward in the usual way, but it also feeds it sideways so it can create these really wide stitches. And when you select one of them, it shows you need to use the S foot for these stitches. That foot's just designed to help the machine with manoeuvring the fabric in those different directions. And now let's take a look at those lovely wide Omnimotion stitches, and you'll see the fabric actually moving side to side as well as forwards. You know, it really is amazing what the machine can do. I've got the S foot on, which is designed specifically for these lovely wide stitches, and to keep you sort of level and going in the right, you can draw a line down your fabric just to give you that center point. I haven't done that myself, but let's go ahead and just start stitching out these gorgeous Omnimotion stitches. And you can just see there, I got a little bit carried away, went off the end of my fabric because I was so mesmerised by the Omnimotion stitches, but how beautiful are they? And you can see there how you can start to, you know, if you're making a quilt or something, sometimes even the maximum size of certain stitches doesn't feel quite big enough, but with these you can really start to put your stamp on things. There are also a number of stitches on this machine that are exclusive to Husqvarna. So if we go to menu L, you will see the dimensional stitches menu, and this is where those stitches live. So we've got applique and pop-up stitches, and we've also got sequin stitches as well. So if I choose one of these sequin stitches, the machine will allow you to actually, there's probably a better example I can show you, actually that one. The machine will allow you to actually place a sequin and stitch a sequin onto your fabric at a certain point in that stitch. It's a great way to add literally your own sparkle to your projects. And of course we've got to take a look at those gorgeous sequin stitches in action. So I'm in menu L, I've selected dimensional stitch number 19. I'm going to lower the foot and lower the needle, and I'm using my S foot again, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch until the machine stops of its own accord. And then once the machine stops, I use the extra presser foot raise so that I can see where to position my sequin, and you just want to position it to the left of the needle where the stitch out finishes. And again, using my extra foot lift there, just so I've got that extra visibility, and I can accurately position the sequin where I want it to be. And you can carry on as long as you like, but you can see there that I've added that beautiful bit of sparkle, that extra special finish to that fabric, and you can see how you can start to customise your projects and just bring some really interesting, unique details into them. And I also thought it would be nice to show you one of the alphabets as well. So you actually get 4 different fonts on this machine, and I've chosen the scriptive writing to show you one of the more fancy fonts. So you can see there we've got that lovely So Essential, just as a little reminder of who we are. But yeah, you can see that lovely scriptive writing there. You've got 4 different options for fonts that you can play around with to customise and personalise your projects. If we take a look at the free motion embroidery options on the Brilliance 75Q, there is even more to shout about. We just press this button here and it takes us into the menu, and we're able to choose which foot we would like to work with for the free motion embroidery. So we can choose from the free motion floating foot, which is this plastic foot which is included with the machine when you purchase it from us, and that floats above the fabric as you sew your free motion embroidery. Alternatively, you might want to work with one of the spring action feet, and this is available to purchase separately on our website. We do stock the full range of Husqvarna feet and accessories as well as the machines. So if you prefer one of these feet which makes contact with the fabric as you sew and sort of hops along the fabric, you've got that option as well. And then you've also got the option to use free motion ruler feet as well. So you can choose which technique, which foot you feel is going to work best for your project, and you also have the ability to adjust the height at which the foot presents itself to the fabric, so you can raise or lower the foot closer to the fabric or further away using that plus and minus symbols there. And then not only that, one of the things I think is most advanced about it is that normally on lots of sewing machines, if you want to sew free motion embroidery, you have to manually lower or raise the feed dogs. So very often you'll have to take the accessory tray off and move a lever at the back of the machine. With the Brilliance 75Q, the machine automatically does that for you. So if I select the top option now, I want you to listen carefully and you'll hear a clicking sound, and that is the feed dogs being lowered, ready for free motion embroidery. So I'm going to press the button now, and you can hear those feed dogs have been lowered and the machine is ready to go in free motion mode. And then to bring the feed dogs back up again, I just press the button to deselect the free motion embroidery, and the machine will just automatically bring those feed dogs back up as I start sewing. But the other thing we have to mention here is that on most sewing machines, when you sew free motion embroidery, you can only sew a straight stitch or a zigzag stitch. On the Brilliance 75Q, we can sew free motion embroidery with any of these fantastic stitches that we've been talking about throughout the video. So it gives you endless opportunities to get really creative and put your personal stamp on those sewing projects. And I just want to run through some of the settings as well, so that you get a feel for how the machine can be customised and some of the other helpful features that are built into it. So we've got the zigzag button at the top, which is, we know, just our quick access to those stitch menus. We've got the A icon, which just takes us through to the alphabet. And then we've got the program option, because you can program stitches into this machine. So I've typed out here Sew S for Sew Essential. I can use the delete button to delete the selected stitch, or I can use the delete button. If I hold it down, it will delete all of the stitches. And then if I just type it back in, if I just type sew in, I press the green tick, and that has been programmed into the machine for me, so it will stitch that out. But then I can also press the heart button and select a space, and that stitch has now been saved and saved to my stitches. So if I press the tick, if we go to the stitch menus here and go all the way to the U menu at the bottom, you will see my save stitches there. And don't forget, all the time that I'm showing around these different menus, if you forget what one of them's for, you just have to press that question mark and it will tell you exactly what that icon will do for you. So if we just press the green tick, we go back to the menu here, and next up is the file storage. So this is where you can store your files and organise them, anything that you want to save to your machine. You might have imported something from a USB and you can create lots of folders and save them there. And then beneath that, you've got your machine settings and your sewing settings and your stitch setting options. So in terms of the sewing settings, you can choose the twin needle setting, and you actually select the size of twin needle you're going to be using. On most machines that have this capability, you just select the fact that you're going to be sewing with a twin needle. But on the Brilliance 75Q, you select the actual size of twin needle that you're going to be using, and the machine automatically sets the correct width for any stitches you choose for that size of twin needle, so that you're not going to break your needle. It's just so intelligent. Then you've got your stitch width safety option. You select that if you're going to be using a straight stitch plate or a straight stitch foot, and it will prevent needle breakage again. You've got your selective thread cutter for sewing as well. So when that's selected, it's things like when you finish sewing a bar tack or a buttonhole, the machine will automatically snip those threads for you. But if you don't want to do that, you can just deselect that option. The sensor presser foot lift is one of my favourite features. When that's activated, the foot will raise to pivot height when you stop sewing with the needle in the fabric. That's my preference, but if you don't want it to do that, you can deselect that. And then you've also got the fix auto option as well, which means that when you start sewing a stitch, the machine will automatically sew a fixed stitch, which is one of those lovely neat on the spot stitches to secure your seam. If you don't want the machine to do that and you want to have control over it, you can deselect that option. Next we have the stitch settings. So you've got stitch length balance adjustment and stitch width balance adjustment. So sometimes when you're sewing some of the decorative stitches, you might want to condense the stitch. You might feel that it's a bit stretched out, and that is where you do that. You can make those adjustments to the stitches to get them exactly how you want them to appear. And then you've also got your presser foot pressure adjustment there as well. And I really like the fact that that's electronic as well, you know, rather than a manual dial. It feels quite nice that it's electronic. And then we go onto the machine settings, and here it's just things like the language, but also things like the lock screen option. If you're doing something and you think you might accidentally touch the screen and adjust the settings that you've selected and you don't want to do that, you can press that button and it will lock the screen for you. Just so many ways to customize the machine, make it your own, and just automate lots of different processes as well, so that you can fine-tune things and set it up to behave in exactly the way you want it to. And it's just got so much intelligence as well, so many ways that you can tell the machine what you're going to be doing, and it automatically sets itself up to give you the optimum results. In the box, you'll find everything you'd expect: a detailed instruction manual, the large foot control, which I find doesn't move around as much as some of the smaller standard ones can, and it's also really easy to find with your foot under the table. Plus it has a retractable cord, which is great for keeping things neat and tidy. You get a hard cover, you get some spare bobbins, needles, spool caps, a screwdriver, a cleaning brush. You also get a straight stitch plate, which is brilliant for when you're working with very fine fabrics that have a tendency to get pulled down into the feed dogs. Plus you get the 12 presser feet. So you get the standard ones you would expect, things like a blind hem stitch foot, a zipper foot, the standard zigzag foot, but then you also get things like the sideways stitch foot, a free motion embroidery foot, an open toe applique foot, and a non-stick glide foot for some of those trickier fabrics like PVC or leather. Then, if you want to take your sewing even further, there are an exceptionally wide range of feet and accessories available to buy separately for this machine. And this is one of the places where Husqvarna really excel. There are so many opportunities to stretch your creative skills. Things like couching feet, or feet that you can use with yarn, or Spanish hem stitch feet. There are lots and lots of opportunities and possibilities to try different things in your sewing. I'll pop a link in the corner of the screen so you can view them on our website. Just look for the Husqvarna feet and accessories, and if you need any help choosing at all, don't hesitate to ask, because that is what we're here for. I've given you a really good overview of my beautiful machine, the Husqvarna Brilliance 75Q. But if I've left any of your questions unanswered, don't hesitate to get in contact. All of our machines come with a full manufacturer's warranty, so that's 5 years on the Brilliance 75Q. And in the unlikely event that you have a problem, just get in touch. Very often we can resolve any issues over the phone, but if that's not the case, we'll collect the machine and do everything for you. We offer the best prices, but if you do see a machine cheaper somewhere else, please do get in touch and we will be very happy to help. Your machine will be delivered the next working day, free of charge, by courier, with a dedicated time slot, so you know exactly when that happy post is going to arrive. I hope you're feeling super excited about your new machine. Thanks for watching.